He moves with brutal efficiency, a master of the kingdom's sword. His blade becomes a blur, a dance of deadly precision. He unleashes the seventh form, a devastating final strike. In his eyes, the cold focus of a seasoned killer, but the fight takes its toll, and a voice calls out his name. Varuna. His senior appears, casually chiding him for the ambush. He's told he's the future of the boar hunting knights and looks thrilled, an order at the bottom of the hierarchy made entirely of commoners. They were formed a century ago to clean up a mess the nobles refused. Their true name, a task force for the kingdom's most dangerous threats. As they trek through the wilderness, his senior questions his resolve. Then he casually drops a bombshell, a promotion to vice captain. Varuna is stunned, unable to process the sudden news. His senior beams with pride, calling him the fastest to ever rise so high. But Varuna's mind is already elsewhere, on the current captain, Luger. He recalls a cunning face, a man with dangerous ambitions. Suddenly, they're being carried like a sack of potatoes, a new low. His senior dreams of what the promotion means, a better life for his family, but his real motivation seems to be attracting beautiful women. He drags Varuna along, already planning his victory lap with the ladies. But Varuna cuts him off, his mind on a different prize. He declares he'd rather be taking down a mountain of orc heads. His senior is genuinely terrified by this level of battle lust. They mark the kill site, leaving a flag for the cleanup crew. The orc's blood is a poison that seeps into the very earth. Another dirty job left to the boar hunting knights. A cheerful researcher greets them from a mobile purification facility. She's impressed by his work, and he gives her a casual head pat. She quickly objects, telling him not to treat her like a kid. Varuna just smirks, teasing that she certainly looks like one. She fires back, flustered, pointing out her more mature features, but her pout just makes her look even younger. Changing the subject, she thanks him for his help with the orcs. We learn her name is Nonoka, and she's from the Ruvakuru race, a unique people who never physically age past a certain point. She notices his stare and asks what's on his mind. He can't help but comment on her childlike appearance again. Varuna just stares, completely unfazed by her outburst. She insists she's a woman, but he remains unconvinced. Her attempts to look mature only make the situation funnier. Their conversation is cut short by a new arrival, a kingdom official named Yagara, who seems disgusted by everything. Varuna tries to explain, but the man only hears complaints. He introduces himself with a sneer as an exile execution officer. Varuna knows exactly what that means. He gets rid of the unwanted. Yagara looks down on them, repulsed by the dirty work of commoners. He dismisses their efforts with a condescending, aristocratic air. But his senior, Rock, decides to try some aggressive diplomacy. He offers the noble a drink, and Varuna can't believe his eyes. It's a bottle of infamous liquor, known for its terrible taste. Varuna leans in close, startling the young researcher. The official Yagara seems to reluctantly accept his fate. Nonoka laments that her work leaves no room for femininity. But Varuna's gaze remains fixed, his expression unreadable. She huffs, declaring her love for research and dissection above all else. Still, she can't help but wish for a little validation. Varuna turns, offering to join her on a dissection date. She's left utterly speechless by the world's least romantic invitation. He explains it's because he'd hate for her to be dissected by mistake. And besides, he says, she's a charming woman that everyone likes. Nonoka is left completely short-circuited by his words. But the tender moment fades as their harsh reality returns. It's back to the wilderness covered in mud and leaves. This is the life he chose to wager his life and sword. Every step forward is for the sake of the kingdom and its people. The royal dangerous species. Countermeasure knights head to another battlefield. Their arrival is a thunderous impact on the corrupted land. A flashback reveals his origin, Varuna, the orc slayer. He is a weapon of the boar hunting knights, a whirlwind of death, all for a meager salary, covered in the filth of their duty. He's utterly spent, a shell of the warrior from the battlefield. The squad trudges back, dreaming of food, drink, and a warm bed. They arrive at the knights' temporary camp, a small oasis of civilization. Despite the filth and exhaustion, the knights' spirits are high. But a matronly figure notices Varuna is not his usual self. She's Tamai, the head chef, whose cooking can apparently resurrect the dead. Varuna begs her to stop using his embarrassing childhood nickname. She just laughs, saying he's like a son to her. He argues that it undermines his authority with the juniors. But Tamai just smiles, a former genius chef of the royal court. She works miracles on a shoestring budget, a feast for the weary. Varuna takes a bite, and the exhaustion of the battlefield melts away. He declares her cooking is the boar-hunting knight's greatest asset. The other knights agree, praising her as the kingdom's finest chef. The entire squad is revitalized, already lining up for more. Their budget is a joke, forcing cuts to salary and equipment. But her cooking provides a comfort that money can't buy. Tamai watches over him, her expression filled with concern. An assistant asks if she's worried about Varuna again. She is. Knowing his promotion will only lead him to darker places. He's known as Varuna the Headhunter, a prodigy from the academy. To her, he's an executioner, walking a lonely and bloody path. She fears that one day his spirit will finally shatter. But for now, he's just a kid enjoying a good meal. And she watches over him with a mother's gentle smile. The brief moment of peace gives way to the wilderness once more. They're back on the hunt, their boots sinking into the corrupted soil. His senior notes that with Varuna, a 4-man job only needs 2. Rock looks at him with a reverence usually reserved for gods. Varuna calmly points out 3 more targets still twitching. Varuna reports the encirclement is incomplete. He'll hunt the rest. With a wild cheer, Rock sends his junior off to finish the job. He leans back, musing on what it truly means to be a knight. A flashback to a young boy who once dreamed of becoming one. He remembers a time he stood frozen before a hulking beast. Its eyes burned with a terrifying, monstrous hunger. The boy could only cry, paralyzed by absolute fear. But a calm eye observed the scene, ready to intervene. A blade slices through the air, a silver flash in the dark. The monster is felled in a single, decisive strike before the child. The knight's voice is calm, telling the boy not to be afraid. He makes the child swear on his sword to always protect others. Back in the present, Rock remembers that oath, the pride of a knight, a promise he now fulfills with brutal, head-shattering efficiency. He will hunt the kingdom's enemies to the very ends of the earth. The scene shifts, showing a young Varuna standing over his own kill. Even as a boy, he fought for nothing more than a meager salary. He unleashes the 7th form, a technique to annihilate his foes. He even tells the twitching corpse to quiet down. Our boy has 0 chill. Without missing a beat, he prepares his first form for the next target. His eyes burn with the cold fire of a predator. He moves like a phantom, his blade an extension of his will. The beast roars its last, a victim of his deadly art. He may have become a knight, but the dream was a lie. In reality, he was just a commoner baptized in blood. He fights not for glory, but for a pittance of a salary. Overworked and underpaid, his life is a constant grind. Every day is a life-or-death struggle against the kingdom's horrors. The endless slaughter begins to take its toll on his mind. And through it all, a grim smile touches his lips. Our boy really loves his job. He's locked in a brutal struggle, the monster's foul breath on his face. But he's not alone. An archer named Karume arrives to offer support. A wild-haired spear wielder roars, demanding her piece of the action. Even the tool squad leader, Akina, joins the fray with a custom-made bludgeon. Their coordinated assault finds its mark, tearing into the beast from below. Akina screams his name, signaling the perfect moment to strike. Varuna plants his feet, anchoring himself for the decisive blow. Because no matter the odds, he will always push forward. The beast can only stare in terror as its final moment arrives. He fights because he has comrades, a family worth dying for. He will show them his own path of the night. He pours every ounce of his will into the blade, unleashing the kingdom's offensive sword style. The 6th form, Crimson Sparrow. The beast's eye widens in its final moments. His blade becomes a whirlwind of steel and fury. A single perfect strike to end the battle. The job is done. He tells his senior to mark the kill. Rock is just happy his junior is alive and maybe a little starstruck. Varuna plants the flag himself, already dreading the cleanup crew's complaints. He is the orc-slaying man, a title earned in blood. A flashback to a duel, a vow to hunt his enemies to the ends of the earth. Even back then, he fought for the same meager salary. His opponent moves with blinding speed, a storm of steel, and in his eyes the unholy glee of a true battle maniac. He wonders why he's been ordered to fight another human. 2 days later, an armored train carries them toward the capital. He's driven by a cheerful engineer named Rai, who worries about their deadline. But the young engineer promises to get him there no matter what. Varuna explains that this mock battle is a matter of the kingdom's honor. Rai recalls Varuna's victory last year, where he defeated the sword god. They discuss the magic-powered train, a marvel that runs on ambient mana. Varuna gives the young engineer a rare compliment on his skill. But Rai humbly insists that Varuna is the truly incredible one. He sees Varuna as the ideal knight, a stark contrast to his own failures. To him, Varuna shines like the first and brightest star in the night sky. Our boy, however, seems completely unmoved by the hero worship. He tells Rai to drop the formalities as they're the same age. Then he grabs the controls, demanding they push the engine to its absolute limit. The train rockets forward, with Rai screaming that they're going to crash. Varuna's grin is pure chaos as he pushes the train past its limits. Rai recalls a simpler time, surviving on meager field rations. He was once the captain of a gang, the Imperial Wolf Pack. Suddenly, he spots two orcs standing directly on the tracks. The train thunders on, giving the orcs a front-row seat to their own demise. They arrive at the capital, at the barracks of the Seijun Knights. A noble greets Varuna, complaining about an unpleasant smell. He sneers that it's the stench of a commoner clinging to our boy. But Varuna just smirks, blaming the noble's overpowering perfume. Their squabble is interrupted by the arrival of a radiant young woman. The noble, Sedna, greets him with a bouquet and far too much enthusiasm. The young woman beams, her smile as bright as the capital itself. Sedna continues his performance, completely ignoring Varuna's discomfort. Without warning, the girl throws herself into Varuna's arms. Our boy is flustered, complaining that he hasn't even washed up yet. She pulls back, offering him words of encouragement for his upcoming match. She insists he'll be fine, a confidence that Varuna doesn't seem to share. She leans in close, reminding him that they're best friends after all. For a moment, the hardened warrior's expression softens. But the moment is broken by Sedna, who seems to have been forgotten in the reunion. She happily drags him off for a meal, leaving Sedona's soul to literally exit his body in despair. The next day, the Grand Royal Tournament begins with a roar from the Colosseum crowd. In the arena, Varuna faces off against Van Lancer, the ace of the elite Seijun Knights. It's a 5v5 elimination match, and the boar hunting knights are already down 2 members. Van smirks, eager for a rematch against the infamous headhunter who defeated him last year. Varuna glances at Sedona's crushed roses, feeling strangely more at ease than on his first mission. But with his entire Knight Order's reputation on the line, he knows losing is not an option. The match starts with a bang as Varuna narrowly deflects a lightning-fast spear thrust. Van grins like a madman, clearly reveling in the thrill of the high-speed clash. He unleashes a devastating attack, tearing up the arena floor in a massive shockwave. Varuna realizes with cold clarity that a split-second delay would have been the end of him. But his opponent, Van, just grins, absolutely thrilled by the near miss. Varuna's eyes narrow, his mind already calculating the perfect counter to this overwhelming speed. Van unleashes a furious gale of spear strikes, roaring that there's no escape from his assault. The arena becomes a storm of steel as the two warriors exchange a blinding flurry of blows. Varuna is forced onto the defensive, struggling against the sheer power of the elite knight's onslaught. Without letting up, Van instantly transitions from a sweep into a deadly, piercing thrust. But the orc-slaying man's gaze is unwavering, seeing through the feint with practiced ease. Their weapons collide with explosive force, shaking the very foundations of the Colosseum. Van's wild grin returns, impressed that the infamous headhunter could so easily parry his signature move. Varuna calmly analyzes his opponent, knowing that reading his foe's moves is the key to victory. But even he is surprised by the spear's relentless advance, aimed directly for his throat. He realizes the initial onslaught was just a feint, a test before the real attack. But the orc-slaying man is not without his own strategy. Back in his office, Captain Luger nervously reviews the stakes. The entire Order's reputation is on the line. He recalls begging a reluctant Varuna to fight in his place. The captain was terrified, knowing a loss would bring shame upon them all. He even feigned a stomachache, crying about being a useless leader to guilt-trip his subordinate. Varuna is completely unimpressed, his mind drifting to his far less dramatic comrades. Ultimately, he accepted the burden, vowing to fight in the name of the boar-hunting knights. He fights not for glory, but for the sake of his captain's incredibly fragile stomach. Van, on the other hand, is absolutely loving it, screaming with the pure thrill of the fight. The captain's illness is revealed, a panic attack over his squad making poisoned dumplings for a mission. He frantically turns to Akina for support, who seems utterly baffled by his outburst. The man is so stressed out that his glasses are literally cracking under the pressure. Utterly broken by his squad's antics, his soul leaves his body as he wails for help. Even the gentle Surna struggles to comfort the collapsed captain, who begs for Varuna to save him. His captain's pathetic plea to hurry back echoes as the furious clash continues. But Varuna pushes the nonsense aside, his expression hardening as he focuses on the fight. He braces himself, preparing to turn the tide with a perfectly timed counter. His eyes narrow, seeing through the feint with absolute clarity. Van roars in triumph, believing he's finally landed the decisive blow. But Varuna twists away at the last second, the spear only grazing the air where he once stood. Lying on the ground, he coolly remarks on what a ridiculously powerful attack that was. He realizes his opponent was baiting him, deliberately breaking his stance to create an opening. Van refuses to let the opportunity slip, pivoting instantly for another furious strike. But Varuna's judgment is swift and cold. Too slow as he prepares to unleash the kingdom's legendary swordsmanship. Instead of cutting, he smashes the pommel of his sword into Van's side with brutal force. The blow throws the elite knight completely off balance, and Varuna calmly declares, "Check." Van can only manage a strained smirk, caught completely off guard by the unorthodox counter. Van laughs from the ground, admitting his complete and utter defeat. With the match over, Van laments getting old, but Varuna simply tells him that's enough. The announcer's voice booms, declaring Varuna of the boar hunting knights the victor. In a show of sportsmanship, Varuna helps his defeated opponent back to his feet. From the stands, his biggest fan erupts in a joyous cheer, celebrating his victory. Van immediately tries to marry off his daughter to the winner, much to Varuna's suspicion. But the tournament isn't over, as the final match between the two knight orders is announced. The crowd roars for Varuna to step forward, urging him not to lose the final round. All eyes are now on the final opponent, the legendary warrior known only as the Sword God. The captain of the Sajin Knights, Kshud Vendel, glares with fury, ready to defend his 20-year reign. Varuna sighs, already tired of the endless expectations weighing him down. The crowd's cheers are just noise as he worries about his squad and the new vice-captaincy. But in the arena, his opponent's taunts only fuel his desire to end this quickly. He helps his fallen foe, who worries about the future of his own knight order after this loss. Van's desperate cry reminds Varuna that even legends can fall, and he needs to get back to his own mess. With a roar, Varuna demands his final opponent step forward, ready to finish the fight. But standing alone in the vast Colosseum, he suddenly realizes he might have been a bit too loud. An old official nervously approaches, asking about the Sejun Knight's captain. Varuna is completely baffled by the man's sudden and timid concern. Then, the Sword God himself appears, a terrifying figure who only cares about his own glory. His biggest fan and Varuna are both stunned by the sudden challenge. The Sword God smirks, telling the headhunter it's time to aim for even greater heights. Varuna is completely overwhelmed, sweating bullets under the immense pressure. He realizes with dawning horror that he's just made a colossal mistake. The next day, the crowd celebrates as Varuna is once again crowned champion. Even the royal family is impressed, with the king praising his back-to-back victories. The first prince smugly takes credit, boasting that he's the one who recognized Varuna's talent. But the second prince, Astria, cuts in, claiming Varuna is actually his best friend. Astria smiles slyly, musing that they'll have to create a few new legends together. Meanwhile, Varuna's actual friend happily drags the bewildered champion through the victory festival. She excitedly points out the festival stalls, but a mysterious hand reaches for Varuna from off-screen. Both warriors are united in their true quest, to conquer every delicious treat in sight. A familiar voice notes from behind that Varuna is as restless and busy as ever. Varuna questions Prince Astria for casually wandering the crowded streets without any guards. The prince just smiles slyly, taking a bite from an apple with a knowing look. Astria greets the pair, casually remarking that it's been a while since they've seen each other. The scene shifts to the throne room, where Varuna kneels before the king to be honored for his victory. His victory tour takes him to the opulent and unfamiliar world of the royal palace. In a lavish room, a servant pours tea into an ornate cup, a stark contrast to his usual life. Prince Astria remarks that no matter how much Varuna rampages, it's never quite enough for him. Varuna snaps at the prince, telling him to shut up about his big mouth during the tournament. Astria gleefully mocks him, saying the Sajin Knight's pride was crushed like pizza dough. The prince and his friend erupt in laughter, thoroughly enjoying Varuna's embarrassment. Varuna can only sigh, muttering that these two haven't changed one bit. A flashback reveals their shared history from the officer academy, a prince and a rich heiress. He reflects on the miracle of a commoner like him becoming friends with such powerful people. The scene shifts as the prince calls down to his two friends from a towering bookshelf. With a charming wink, Astria asks if they're ready for their next adventure together. His friends' eyes sparkle with excitement, completely on board with the prince's plan. Overwhelmed by their friendship, a single tear escapes Varuna's eye as he cracks a rare, genuine smile. Varuna slams his empty cup down, annoyed by the prince's teasing about his rampage. The flashback continues, showing the clash of wooden swords from their academy days. The trio are locked in a fierce but friendly sparring match, a commoner against royalty. Varuna easily counters Sedona, pointing out her footwork is too weak for a Sajin knight. She argues that it's because he's the only one who ever takes her training seriously. Desperate to improve, she begs him to visit the capital more often to be her sparring partner. Varuna suggests she train with the prince, but she dismisses Astria's style as completely useless. Meanwhile, the useless prince is comically stuck in a training dummy, complaining about their commoner-style fighting. Sedona's eyes narrow with cunning as she seems to spot a critical opening in Varuna's stance. But her sly grin reveals it was all a feint, a clever trap to lure him in. But Varuna sees right through her trick, calling her move completely naive. He effortlessly parries both of their attacks, proving he's on a whole other level. Their relentless training echoes through the academy grounds from dawn till dusk. Day after day, the sounds of their clashing swords became a familiar part of academy life. But even Varuna has his limits, growing weary of their endless energy as night falls. Finally fed up, he delivers a swift bonk to Sedona's head, demanding she take this seriously. The commoner stands victorious over the exhausted prince and the stunned heiress. Even the orc-slaying man is left completely drained by his two hyperactive friends. Sedona complains that the prince's boundless energy is just plain reckless. Astria fires back, claiming her constant chatter is the real threat to his sanity. Varuna sighs, remembering how his two friends haven't changed a bit since their academy days. He recalls a specific promise they all made back then. They vowed to meet again after joining their respective knight orders to serve the kingdom. Astria confidently declared he would join the prestigious Sajin Knights. Sedona proudly announced she would follow him into the same elite order. But Varuna chose a different path, smirking as he claimed the thankless hazardous species corps for himself. With swords crossed, the three future knights swore a solemn oath of justice for the kingdom. Years later, the prince and the heiress have grown into their regal and serious roles, and Varuna has become the hardened, battle-weary warrior he was always meant to be. The flashback ends as Varuna slams his cup down, startling the prince back to the present. He carries his two exhausted friends, determined to uphold the vow he made to them. But on the way back, their grim reality rears its ugly head once more. Without a moment's rest, Varuna is back to his bloody work, cutting down another beast. The monster can only roar in fury as it faces the legendary orc-slaying man. In a flash of steel, the creature is silenced forever, another tally for the headhunter. The young archer Karumi appears, apologizing for interrupting his return from the tournament. She blushes, claiming she was just so excited to see him, she welcomed the local wildlife. But her true feelings are revealed as she panics over the creepy crawlies, much to his amusement. Varuna asks what happened to the poison dumpling operation while he was gone. Karumi nervously changes the subject, pointing out their next stop and the documents they need. A flashback reveals Akina passionately explaining their new, highly delicate operation. Her grand strategy is unveiled. The poison dumpling operation to wipe out an entire orc colony. The squad immediately objects, worried about the poison's devastating impact on the local ecosystem. But they rally together, vowing to take down the orcs in a much safer, more humane way. Back in the present, Varuna notes that despite the risks, their modified plan was a success. He turns to Karumi with a smug grin, thanking her for the crucial intel she provided. His simple words of gratitude send the young archer's heart into a complete frenzy. Utterly flustered, Karumi covers her face, unable to handle his intense, unwavering gaze. Varuna leans in close, suddenly realizing his junior archer is actually quite feminine. He pulls back, lost in thought, while Karumi just thinks he looks cool even when he's brooding. A brilliant, if not slightly unhinged idea suddenly pops into Varuna's head. He asks Karumi if she knows why the old knight orders were once forbidden to women. He explains that when young, frustrated knights have no outlet for their pent-up energy, a certain kind of incident was bound to happen in the barracks. With a grim expression, he prepares to reveal the shocking truth of these incidents. The young archer braces herself, her eyes wide with horrified anticipation. But the incident was just the lonely knights finding companionship with each other, leaving them both screaming. He smirks, admitting he was just teasing her because she's so feminine. But Karumi collapses, weakly admitting that if it were him, she wouldn't mind, leaving Varuna stunned. She innocently asks if she was wrong, having completely misunderstood his entire point. He tells her to be more confident, insisting she's far more beautiful than she realizes. His unexpected praise reduces her to a blubbering mess, vowing to try her best. But Varuna's focus suddenly sharpens, his gaze fixed on the darkness ahead. He quickly silences the startled archer, his playful mood completely gone. The swordsman signals for caution, confirming his suspicion of an enemy presence nearby. He examines the ground, discovering a clue that confirms they're walking into a trap. Varuna tosses a small rock down the path, testing the darkness for a reaction. A massive shadow suddenly looms from the cave wall, revealing the hidden threat. But the monster they find is a strange one, a tiny creature dancing in front of a fallen orc. Varuna's eyes widen in disbelief as he realizes he's looking at a child orc. Before he can react, an arrow flies from the darkness, striking the creature down. Varuna is impressed, noting it was a perfect shot on a moving target in near total blackness. He turns to compliment his partner on their incredible skill. Karum coolly lowers her crossbow, dismissing the impossible shot as mere child's play. With a proud smirk, he acknowledges her as the undisputed best sniper in the Night Order. He can't resist teasing her, wishing she was this focused even without his praise. Shifting back to the grim task, he orders her to bag the specimen before the blood contaminates the area. But their work is interrupted by another discovery, a different orc wearing a strange pig mask. Karume's eyes narrow, sensing something is very wrong with this new development. Varuna cautiously checks the masked figure, confirming it's no longer a threat. But the story shifts to a darker memory as a voice calls out to him. A young companion questions their right to kill these creatures. Tears well in their eyes, a sign of a heavy conscience. They hang their head, burdened by the weight of their duty. Their shadows stretch across the rocks, grim and distorted. The companion struggles to find the words for their inner turmoil. They recall the face of their victim, a young orc just trying to live. They admit they killed it for the simple reason of their own survival. Varuna's answer is simple, cold, and brutally honest. The companion asks if he is truly heartless, without blood or tears. The companion falls silent, unable to reconcile their actions. He simply agrees, admitting that he might be just that. But they refuse to accept his grim worldview, calling it wrong. He reminds them of their title, Knights of the Countermeasure Squad. The words hit them with the force of a physical blow. Their job, he states, is to protect the people and exterminate threats. Any hesitation, any half measure only endangers more lives, because if those he protects get hurt, no apology would ever be enough. The companion is left speechless by this sudden vulnerability. He turns away, addressing them by name for the first time. Karume. He tells her to never forget who she's fighting for. His words cut through her doubt, leaving her stunned. She's left flustered by his unexpected sincerity. He offers her a small pouch, a quiet gesture of support. With a determined cry, Karumi finds her resolve once more. Varuna offers a rare smile, acknowledging her own kindness. She's practically steaming with renewed purpose. Someone's had their coffee. With a torch held high, she's ready to take on the world. Back from the mission, Varuna reports his return for the mock battle, but he's met with a surprise welcome from the entire squad. They're all here to celebrate his victory, offering him drinks and praise. He's crowned MVP for the second year in a row, a title he wears with great discomfort. But his real prize is a new set of orders delivered with a rather unsettling smile. This is the daily life of the Royal Dangerous Species Countermeasure Knights, a chaotic march through the wilderness, with half the squad already wiped out. Their destination, an investigation of some ancient ruins. Reports of strange creatures in the area have brought them to this remote location. Varuna is already running on fumes, but the mission comes first. His comrades try to keep his spirits up, but a shadow of dread falls over the group. One of the younger members looks on, her expression filled with unease. The young knight questions the need for such a large force. A senior member tries to explain, looking rather stressed himself. He leans in to whisper the real reason for their mission. The truth of their mission leaves her completely stunned. The investigation is a lie, a cover for Varuna's MVP celebration. Meanwhile, the man of the hour remains completely oblivious. The rest of the squad sweats nervously, trying to act natural. Varuna just wants it over with, while his comrades dream of booze. The squad leader nervously asks Nonoka if the coast is clear. But their secret party is crashed by a tiny pig-nosed gatecrasher. The squad leader and Nonoka are startled by a sudden noise from the woods. He looks around nervously, trying to place the sound. A junior knight panics, asking if that was the sound of an orc. The entire squad freezes, sharing a moment of collective dread. The leader orders Varuna to split off and investigate the rustling, but the rest of them are completely paralyzed by a sudden, irrational fear. The source of the noise reveals itself, a tiny pig-like creature. So much for a terrifying monster. Varuna asks why everyone is frozen, and the leader just laughs nervously. He declares an emergency, ordering the immediate capture of the threat. Nonoka, completely flustered, begs someone to just catch the little thing. The squad descends into a state of panicked, chaotic screaming. But Varuna returns, holding the tiny creature, wondering what the fuss is about. The squad leader's soul practically leaves his body, his grand party plan in ruins. Varuna can't shake the feeling that his comrades are acting stranger than usual. Their relief is cut short by the arrival of what appears to be its very large, very angry mother. The leader realizes this isn't just a wild animal, but an orc's companion. Nonoka panics, realizing there are far more of them than she thought. But where they see a nightmare, Varuna sees just another day at the office. The massive beast lets out a furious, earth-shaking roar. Without hesitation, Varuna launches himself forward, his blade ready to strike. With the situation spiraling, a knight screams for the vice captain's orders. The squad leader grits his teeth, his surprise party now a surprise battle. He yells for Varuna to take command and reorganize them into 3 squads. Varuna calmly accepts, ordering his comrades to annihilate the creatures. The wild-haired spear wielder leaps into the fray, her weapon a blur. Her attack lands true as Kurume provides cover from the air. The archer lines up her shot, her focus absolute. Her bolt finds its mark, piercing the thick hide of their enemy. The beast roars in pain, caught off guard by the sudden assault. Another is trapped in a net, but Kurume's expression is one of unease. Akina is caught in the same net, a victim of their own trap, but Varuna is already moving, his blade a silver arc of death. He carves a path through the chaos, leaving beasts in his wake. He once again calls upon the kingdom's offensive sword style, unleashing the second form, Flying Swallow. His eyes are cold, focused only on the next target. The monster can only roar as it's torn apart. The spear wielder joins the fray, blasting another one back. So much for a quiet MVP party. The entire squad moves as one, a whirlwind of coordinated death. But elsewhere, the squad leader finally admits the truth. This mission was a lie. The squad leader confesses this was all for Varuna's MVP celebration. He can't believe their terrible luck that real orcs actually crashed the party, and Varuna finally understands why everyone was acting so strangely. With the battle won, the real celebration begins back at camp. Our boy is handed a drink, looking overwhelmed by the sudden attention. He watches as his comrades descend into a chaotic, drunken mess. Varuna is left completely baffled by the sudden party atmosphere. The girls of the squad watch him from afar, whispering amongst themselves. They swear they saw him smile, a sight apparently rarer than a unicorn. Rock raises a toast, officially kicking off the MVP celebration at last. The squad leader calls for a toast, putting a very confused Varuna on the spot. With a thunderous roar, the entire squad raises their mugs to the sky. Varuna is swept up in the chaos, the bewildered center of attention. All around him, his comrades celebrate with wild abandon. For one night, they can forget the blood, the mud, and the monsters. A fleeting shadow reminds him of the filth they constantly endure. But the sound of their laughter is more than enough to drown it out. He watches them from the edge of the firelight, a faint smile on his face. This, he realizes, is his true battlefield, and these are his people. The moment is interrupted as Nonoka points to the sky, shouting about a shooting star. Nonoka looks up at the stars, her face filled with childlike wonder. Varuna joins her, sharing in the quiet moment away from the chaos. She explains this was her real reason for the trip, a meteor shower. But as she watches, her thoughts turn to the night's grim reality. To her, their struggle shines just as brightly as any star. Varuna listens, his own expression uncharacteristically gentle. He agrees, admitting there's joy to be found even in their harsh lives. But the peaceful night is shattered by a monstrous glowing eye. The scene shifts to a desolate wasteland, rocked by a massive tremor. In the distance, a lone figure sits amidst the desolation. A landship carves a path through the wasteland, a duel raging on its deck. Varuna clashes with a new opponent, their blades meeting in a shower of sparks. But his opponent's words seem to catch him completely off guard. The man asks about his family back home, a strange question for a battle. His opponent's eyes burn with a fierce, unwavering determination. Varuna admits he has a younger brother, his only remaining family. The man looks to the horizon, admitting he hasn't seen his own family in a while. A memory surfaces of a young boy's worried face. Varuna snaps back to the fight, telling him to keep his head in the game. Their journey ends at the quarry town of Kurifia, a city built on the edge of a cliff. The town of Kurifia is a bustling, if slightly weathered, settlement. A man's voice booms out, greeting an old friend after a long time. A brawny, red-haired knight named Gaiman greets the town mayor, Ricky. He leans in close, asking the mayor how his brother is doing. The mayor seems a bit flustered by the question, scratching his head. He quickly recovers, laughing it off and welcoming the knight back home. But their reunion is cut short by a stern-looking aide named Senega. The mayor apologizes profusely, bowing as he's asked to provide a map. Guess playtime is over. He gets down to the briefing. 2 weeks ago, a miner found orc corpses near the cliff. The local vigilantes were sent to investigate, but it seems the problem requires professionals. The mayor explains the situation, using a map to show the orc threat. The town lacks high-ranking knights, leaving them to fend for themselves. Instead, they rely on a vigilante group led by a man named Nagi. The mayor admits the vigilantes are rough, but they get the job done. Varuna listens silently, his expression as stoic as ever. But Gaiman's face darkens, knowing there's a catch. Despite the patrols, the damage to the town continues to grow. Fields are being ravaged and harvests are lost. So much for farm to table. With food supplies dwindling, the town's anxiety is reaching a peak. The mayor admits defeat, completely overwhelmed by the crisis. The mayor concludes the orcs have infiltrated the town itself, but Varuna's eyes show he's already a step ahead. Gaman formally requests the aid of the boar hunters, a nickname Varuna admits is a bit of a sore spot back at HQ. The mayor bows his head, acknowledging their expertise. With a steely gaze, Varuna accepts the mission for his squad, but a new voice cuts in, full of scorn and dismissal. The vigilante leader Nagi doesn't seem impressed. Varuna is caught off guard by the sudden interruption. Nagi stands with his crew, questioning the knight's presence. Nagi's crew sneers, calling the knights weak, pampered sellswords. Gaiman steps between them, telling the vigilantes to stand down. Nagi shouts that his vigilantes are all the town needs. Varuna watches the drama unfold, already tired of the local politics. The mayor tries to reason with him, calling out Nagi's name. But Gaiman greets him with a warm smile, like an old acquaintance. Varuna puts it together, noticing the uncanny family resemblance. Nagi grabs Gaiman by the collar, his face a mask of pure rage. Well, so much for a warm family reunion, he snarls, asking how Gaiman dares to show his face here again. Gaiman just smiles nervously, insisting they're only here to help. Nagi's rage boils over, his voice a low, threatening growl. His grip tightens, the wolf emblem on his glove a symbol of his pride. But Varuna intervenes, his hand a vice on the vigilante's wrist. He calmly suggests Nagi join the knights if he's so full of energy. With a sharp squeeze, he forces Nagi to release his brother. The vigilante leader can only grit his teeth in frustration. Nagi tries to storm off, but Varuna holds him in place. He finally breaks free, declaring the knights have no business here. He leaves with a final, bitter warning for his shitty older brother. So much for a happy reunion. Gaiman is left behind, admitting his brother's attitude gives him the creeps. Gaiman mutters that his brother is just like them. The door slams shut, shaking the entire building. Varuna is taken aback by the sheer force of his exit. Gaiman can only look down, defeated by the encounter. Dust falls from the ceiling, a testament to Nagi's rage. The mayor apologizes profusely for the vigilante's terrible manners, but his aide, Senega, calmly tells him not to worry. She tells him there's no need to read the room, earning a light scolding. The officials agree to cooperate fully with the knights. Varuna is just left wondering what on earth just happened. Gaiman knew this mission wouldn't be a simple one. The town's problems ran deeper than just a few stray orcs. With a powerful beat of its wings, a scout takes to the sky. The knights watch as their eyes in the sky head for the cliffs. The raven soars over the desolate landscape, a silent hunter. It returns to its master, a cheerful knight named Kayariban. Varuna immediately asks for the report from his familiar. The scout found a massive orc nest deep within a vertical chasm. A magical familiar, a perfect tool for reconnaissance and intel. But Senega isn't impressed, telling Gaiman to stop looking creepy and get to work. Varuna asks if the scout was able to investigate inside the chasm. Kayariban explains the chasm is a natural fortress, impossible to scout from above. The squad members banter, teasing each other about the difficult terrain. But Varuna's focus is already on the mission ahead. He analyzes the map, trying to figure out how the orcs bypass the patrols. To solve this puzzle, they'll need the help of the local vigilantes, a prospect that already has Varuna feeling completely drained. He turns to Gaiman, ready to get some answers. Varuna asks why his brother holds such a deep-seated hatred for the knights. Gaiman admits that Nagi's self-righteous attitude makes his skin crawl. Gaiman closes his eyes, lost in thought for a moment. He figures Nagi just wants to solve things his own way. And also, he probably just hates him. But he insists they used to get along so well. A flashback reveals the brothers, overcoming every hardship together. They were inseparable, their laughter echoing through their childhood. Gaiman remembers it all as if it were only yesterday. Varuna dryly points out that Gaiman is a massive fool for his little brother. But the question shifts to a more serious topic. Their parents. The memory is a painful one, of their parents leaving for work. The young Nagi could only cry for them not to go. Gaiman smiles sadly, admitting he had to cut ties with his family. Varuna's eyes narrow, realizing they're just like him. But Gaiman quickly laughs it off, saying, Nagi is all he needs. Varuna can only listen, already tired of this family's drama. He asks Varuna to befriend his brother, insisting he's a good kid. But Varuna's mind is elsewhere, connecting the dots. Back in the present, Varuna dismisses Kayariban from the meeting. The mayor begs Senega to intervene, but she remains unbothered. Her sharp gaze cuts through the room as she asks for a plan. She leans in close, sharing a quiet strategy with Varuna. Senega's plan is simple, and she delivers it with a confident smirk. She shoves Varuna out the door, telling him to go handle it. Our boy is not amused. Gaiman can only scream his senior's name into the empty sky. Later that night, the door to the vigilante headquarters is kicked open. A single decisive kick announces the knight's arrival. The vigilantes are less than thrilled, demanding to know who dares interrupt them. Varuna stands before them, completely unimpressed by their posturing. Back at the mayor's office, the official is having a full-blown panic attack. Senega calmly explains she sent Varuna to negotiate with the vigilante leader. She figured he could handle it, but admits the worst-case scenario is messy. The mayor begs Senega to be careful, but she seems unconcerned. Inside, Varuna is surrounded by the vigilantes, a sea of hostile faces. Their leader, Nagi, smirks, asking what business a knight has here. Varuna introduces himself as a humble, low-ranking knight. He sarcastically thanks them for the incredibly warm welcome. The vigilantes are immediately riled up by his casual disrespect. Nagi tells him to stop wasting his time and get to the point. Varuna decides to cut straight to the chase. Diplomacy was never his strong suit anyway. He asks to borrow their strength for the orc extermination mission. The entire room is left completely speechless by his audacity. The vigilantes erupt in laughter, mocking his bold request. But Varuna doesn't wait for an answer, moving with blinding speed. A sharp elbow strike sends one of the men flying across the room. Nagi's smirk vanishes, replaced by a flicker of genuine surprise. He recovers, admitting that was a bit rough for a low-ranking knight. But he seems intrigued by Varuna's show of force. He proposes a duel. First to surrender loses, and the winner gets their way. Varuna points out that dueling is illegal, but Nagi couldn't care less. Our boy agrees anyway, telling him not to take it lightly. He tells the others to keep quiet, as there are no other witnesses. With the terms set, they're told to state their names. Varuna of the Royal Countermeasure Knights ready for a demonstration, and Nagi, leader of the Kurifia Vigilante Corps. The signal is given and the duel explodes into motion. The other vigilantes watch, suddenly realizing this might have been a bad idea. Varuna is pushed back, surprised by the raw power he's facing. Nagi swings with the fury of a man with something to prove. Each blow is impossibly heavy, a testament to his strength. Their blades meet in a shower of sparks, the air crackling with energy. Nagi puts his entire body into the next swing, aiming to end this quickly. Nagi grits his teeth, sneering that knights don't do any real work. But Varuna moves with an effortless grace that leaves him stunned. A flicker of movement is the only warning Nagi gets. Suddenly, Varuna is everywhere at once, a phantom army of one. Nagi can barely keep up, his weapon a blur against the onslaught. The vigilantes can't believe their eyes. This is no low-ranking knight. This level of skill is something they've never witnessed before. Varuna's pressure becomes a physical force, a monstrous shadow looming over him. And in his eyes, there is no emotion, only the focus of a predator. Nagi finally understands he's picked a fight with a monster. So much for local pride. Nagi grits his teeth, the pressure becoming unbearable. A sudden explosion of force sends the vigilante leader flying. Varuna's blade moves faster than the eye can even follow. The impact rattles Nagi to his very core. He's caught in a storm of steel, unable to find an opening. Nagi hits the floor, his pride shattered along with the furniture. Varuna's eyes are devoid of all emotion. He's not here to make friends. He prepares the final move, the 8th form, White Crane. In an instant, the duel is over, his blade at Nagi's throat. The cold steel is a final, undeniable argument. Nagi can't process his defeat, his pride completely shattered. But his men refuse to accept the outcome surrounding Varuna. They declare the duel invalid, ready to defend their leader's honor. But Nagi screams at his own men to stand down. Before they can react, Varuna moves like a whirlwind. He disarms them all in a single, fluid motion. He tells them not to interfere in a duel between men. The vigilantes can only stare, completely outclassed. Looks like they finally got the memo. Nagi watches, his expression a mix of anger and awe. Varuna sheathes his sword, telling them their actions disrespect their own leader. He stands alone, surrounded by their fallen weapons. Nagi can only grit his teeth, forcing a bitter laugh. The entire building seems to groan from the force of their clash. He finally admits it. A complete and utter defeat. As promised, he'll hear Varuna out, but not just yet. First, he declares, it's time for a feast. Our boy is not prepared for this. The next morning, Varuna wakes to a world of regret. Sunlight streams through the window far too brightly. He's the last one standing amidst a sea of passed-out vigilantes. Varuna is still trying to process this sudden violent hospitality. He wakes to a pounding headache and a young girl trying to get his attention. She nervously offers him a box of medicine for his hangover. He gratefully accepts, and she immediately scurries away in a panic, but she peeks back from a doorway, her expression now one of suspicion. She confronts him, angry about rumors that he stole Gammon's glory in a past battle, but she admits she doesn't trust the adult's gossip, and Gammon appears, agreeing with her. Gammon tells his brother Nagi that he misjudged Varuna, who is actually a good guy. Nagi seems more interested in Varuna's drunken rant from the night before. Our boy has zero recollection. It seems Varuna aired all his grievances about the nights while completely wasted. He can only tremble, realizing he may have revealed far too much. Nagi gives him a hearty thumbs up, leaving Varuna utterly mortified. He declares he likes a straightforward guy, even a foolish one. Varuna is left completely stunned by this sudden turn of events. He asks if Nagi really believes the words of a drunkard. Nagi just grins, quoting a local saying, "A drunken mouth speaks the truth." The words trigger a memory of his tirade from the night before. He recalls complaining about the low pay and the endless stream of monsters. Drunk Varuna is a very honest Varuna. He's horrified, realizing he's disgraced himself as a knight. But Nagi just throws his head back and laughs at his panic. He smiles, glad to have finally heard Varuna's true feelings. Varuna is left sweating, completely lost in this bizarre turn of events. Nagi explains that he could tell Varuna was shouldering his burdens alone. It's a local custom, fight, drink, and let the truth spill out, so much for peaceful negotiations. Nagi believes it's important to show your true feelings to one another. He tells Varuna to be more proud of the fine work he does. For the vigilantes, drinking together is how they truly judge a person's character. And he declares that Varuna is a trustworthy man and a fine knight. The words hit Varuna with unexpected force, echoing in his mind. A single tear falls, a crack in his hardened exterior. He turns away, unable to face the sudden, overwhelming praise. Nagi tries to get his attention as Varuna wipes away a tear. He admits it's been a long time since anyone has truly seen him. Nagi offers him a small pouch, a gesture of their newfound bond. He smiles, telling Varuna to take it as a sign of their friendship. Varuna accepts with a rather undignified but heartfelt thank you. But Nagi makes it clear. He trusts Varuna, not the knights. Especially not the order that includes his shitty older brother. Gammon bursts in, demanding to know why Nagi is so hard on Varuna. But their family drama is cut short by news of chaos in the town. Nagi demands answers, asking how this happened under their watch. The scene shifts to a painful memory of two lonely crosses in a barren wasteland. The two brothers kneel before their parents' graves, Nagi's cries echoing in the silence. Gammon clutches a small pouch, his face a mask of grief and rage. All their parents left them was a handful of trinkets and loose change. He pulls his younger brother into a desperate hug, trying to shield him from the pain. Through his tears, Nagi begs his older brother to make everything okay. A shadow falls over them, a promise of the hard road ahead. Gammon swears an oath, a vow to always protect his little brother. It was a promise that would define the rest of his life. Back in the present, Gammon can only look down, whispering his brother's name. Gammon grits his teeth, the weight of the past pressing down on him. The mayor calls out to him, his expression full of concern. They stand together in the desolate landscape, the tension thick between them. The mayor worries about leaving Nagi with one of the knight's subordinates, but Seneca just smiles, confident that Varuna can handle himself. The mayor looks on, admitting he's not the man he used to be. He suggests they try to have a heart-to-heart talk with Nagi. Gammon just smiles sadly, knowing family therapy isn't on the menu. The mayor laments how much things have changed between the brothers. He believes an honest talk could mend the deep rift between them. Gammon just smiles, saying he'll keep the mayor's words in his heart. He walks away, leaving the old man to sigh at the fractured family. But Nagi's resolve remains unbroken, his anger a simmering fire. Back in town, Varuna is already dealing with a different kind of noise. An angry mob has formed, demanding to know why the knights haven't solved the orc problem. The whispers turn to accusations, their fear twisting into blame. Our boy is just left wondering when his job started involving public relations. And of course, the condescending official Yagura arrives to make things worse. A young man shouts back, saying their lost labor can't be repaid with coin. Varuna watches the scene unfold, his expression hardening. The young man's rage boils over, but Yagura just asks what his problem is. His comrades try to drag him back, pointing out the ravaged fields he's supposed to protect. Varuna decides to handle it himself, leaving the paperwork to the professionals. He and Nagi walk through the town, an unlikely pair on a new mission. They arrive at the scene of the crime, a field torn apart by the invaders. The evidence suggests this was the work of low-level orc grunts, but Varuna kneels, counting the tracks with impossible accuracy. He knows that tracking orcs this way shouldn't even be possible. As Nagi walks off, frustrated by the dead end, Varuna stays focused. His eyes narrow, realizing the clues don't add up. Varuna calls out to Nagi, his expression uncharacteristically serious. He asks why Nagi holds such a deep, burning hatred for Gaiman. The vigilante leader just looks away, trying to ignore the question. But Varuna's gaze is sharp, refusing to let the subject drop. He presses again, wanting to understand the source of this family feud. Nagi finally mutters that his brother changed after joining the Knights. A flashback reveals their parents were merchants who went abroad for work. The boys waited, but only letters and money arrived until they never did. Gaiman explains that after their parents' death, he refused all their inheritance. He cut all ties, and Varuna finally understands the family's deep wounds. Varuna's eyes narrow as the final piece of the story clicks into place. Nagi screams that in the end, Gaiman was just like their parents. He left, calling it his duty, his mission as a knight. He'd return with money and gifts, but never with his time. He never truly listened to his younger brother's pleas. And that, Nagi declares, is why he hates the Knights. Varuna just looks exhausted. This family has more baggage than an airport carousel. But then, a sudden realization cuts through the drama. Nagi asks if he's figured something out, but Varuna is already moving. Back at the ravaged fields, he kneels, having found a crucial clue. He explains the key detail. Orc tracks are found inside the town, but none leading out. Nagi finds the whole situation bizarre, a mystery with no easy answer. But Varuna clarifies. The culprits are definitely the orcs from the cliff nest. The problem is, the Knights have that nest under constant surveillance. Nagi's eyes widen as he begins to understand the impossible implication. The orcs appear and disappear from town as if by magic. Nagi has to admit, it's a strange story, but he's starting to believe it. Varuna puts all the pieces of the puzzle together. He deduces they must be using a secret passage to infiltrate the town. But Nagi is skeptical, doubting that orcs could dig such a tunnel. Varuna warns him not to underestimate their enemy. He explains that orcs are far more intelligent and adaptable than they appear. To treat them as simple beasts is a dangerous and often fatal mistake. Nagi seems to finally understand, putting his trust in Varuna's expertise. Suddenly, a scream of pure terror echoes through the streets. Nagi is screaming for help, having fallen into an open manhole. So much for the tough guy act. Varuna helps him out as the townspeople gather, wondering about the commotion. The vigilante leader emerges, covered in sewer muck and complaining about his luck. But Varuna isn't laughing. He's staring into the darkness of the sewer. And in that moment, he realizes this is no accident. It's the final clue. Nagi complains about the prank, but Varuna is already connecting the dots. He looks up from the sewer, his mind racing with a new theory. He asks Nagi when the manhole was last found open. Nagi recalls it was 2 weeks ago when the orc attacks began. The final piece of the puzzle clicks into place for Varuna. He grabs the vigilante, demanding a map of the town's waterways. Nagi points them toward the archives, the next stop on their investigation. The two walk through the streets, now a team with a single purpose. Nagi watches him, a silent understanding passing between them. He finally speaks, ready to have a real conversation. Back at headquarters, the mayor is stunned to hear Varuna and Nagi are working together. He's just relieved the town is still standing after their little negotiation. He turns to Nonoka, asking for an update on her own investigation. She reveals the orc nest's water source connects directly to the town's underground waterways. It's a secret highway, allowing the orcs to bypass all patrols and enter the town undetected. With the mystery solved, the mayor calls for an immediate strategy meeting to plan their counterattack. Senega is relieved they have the vigilantes on their side, but she'll still need Gaiman's help. But a junior knight asks the obvious question, where exactly is Gaiman? He's standing alone on a path outside of town, a solitary figure against the harsh landscape. His mind drifts back to a time of letters, meager earnings, and a promise to his brother. He vowed to become a strong knight, all to protect his brother. He remembers a time when Nagi's world revolved around him, but that adoration curdled into a bitter, resentful hatred. The memory is a fresh wound, a constant, quiet ache. He recalls trying to hold on, to still be the brother Nagi needed. Back in the present, his face is a mask of grim determination. A voice cuts through the silence, calling out his name. He's panting, and Nonoka asks what has him so rattled. Looks like someone skipped cardio day. She looks on, her expression filled with genuine concern. But their moment is interrupted by an urgent summons for the Knights. Nagi stands over a captured Varuna, a message delivered to the Knights. Gaiman races across the wasteland, a lone figure against the setting sun. Nonoka realizes the truth. The vigilante leader lured Varuna into a trap. Her face is a mask of pure shock and disbelief. And Gaiman has gone to face his brother completely on his own. Gaiman can only repeat the word lies, his trust completely shattered. He can't understand why his own brother would betray them like this. He arrives at the scene screaming Nagi's name into the wind. His hand tightens on his weapon, ready for the inevitable confrontation. Nagi turns, greeting his shitty older brother with a cold sneer. He finds Varuna on the ground, defeated and still. Gaiman screams his junior's name, his voice raw with fury. He confronts his brother, demanding to know why he would do this. Nagi just sneers, mocking his brother's condescending tone. Gaiman presses again, asking what his true objective is. Nagi's answer is simple and utterly chilling, pure spite. Gaiman's patience finally snaps, demanding he release his junior. But Nagi isn't done, admitting he wants to beat Varuna to a pulp. So much for that newfound friendship. With a roar, Gaiman slams his spear into the ground, ordering him to stop. He can't understand it, his face a mask of pained confusion, a memory of a happier time when they were just brothers. Nagi orders him to drop his weapon if he values his junior's life. Without hesitation, Gaiman's spear falls to the ground. He screams that he dedicated his life to protecting Nagi from this path. But Nagi is tired of hearing the same old excuses. Gaiman pleads, asking how it came to this between blood brothers. The word family is met with nothing but pure contempt. Nagi sneers that Gaiman has no right to even show his face here. Looks like someone's holding a grudge. Gaiman can only look down, his own strength now useless. A fist connects as Nagi asks what he even knows about family. Nagi looms over him, spitting that if Gaiman just stayed away, no one would have to die. He grabs his brother by the collar, demanding to know who he's really fighting for. But then he pauses, as if remembering a crucial detail. He holds up the waterway map, the key to the entire orc infiltration, and he casually mentions that there's only one copy. Gaiman can only stare, trying to understand his brother's cruel game. Nagi lays out his ultimatum, the life of a low-ranking knight or the map. He sneers that a true knight would choose the mission without a second thought. This family reunion is getting worse by the second. Gaiman's gaze hardens, the weight of an impossible choice settling upon him. A dark memory surfaces, a voice congratulating him on his ruthless ambition. Nagi sneers that knights only ever think of themselves. A fist connects, a brutal answer to his brother's plea. Gaiman hits the ground, the impact rattling his very bones. Nagi roars, his voice filled with years of pent-up fury. He screams about the sacrifices he makes for his own men, about the prayers he offers before every single battle. He pins Gaiman down, demanding to know if he could ever understand. Looks like family counseling is officially off the table. The blows rain down, a storm of brotherly hatred. Gaiman can only look up as his brother's rage consumes them both. Nagi spits that Gaiman could never know his true feelings. He screams that Gaiman could never understand his pain. Another fist connects, fueled by years of bitter resentment. The force of the blow sends the older brother flying across the dirt. Gaiman hits the ground, his body aching from the brutal assault. Nagi stands over him, a dark silhouette against the setting sun. Through the pain, Gaiman realizes just how strong his little brother has become. Nagi asks how it feels to be looked down on by the one he abandoned. This family reunion is just getting better and better. Gaiman can only stare, the blood and betrayal stinging his eyes. He doesn't understand why Nagi rejects everything he's done for him. He became a knight, sent gifts, all to protect the boy he left behind. Nagi screams that Gaiman never even lifted a finger for him. But Gaiman staked his entire life on this path for his brother. He can't understand why Nagi refuses to see his sacrifice. He only ever wanted to fulfill their family's dream. He believed his brother would always support his dream of knighthood, but he realizes he was the only one who ever believed in it. Nagi spits that Gaiman is the one who's truly blind. He roars that his brother is the one who never understood. This family therapy session is going great. He demands to know why Gaiman always runs away from him. Gaiman can only ask if they aren't each other's only family. Gaiman looks down, the blood on his face a minor wound compared to his brother's words. Nagi screams that the man before him is no longer his brother. He accuses Gaiman of being just like their parents, leaving only money behind. But memories surface of a time Gaiman was always there for him. Through sickness and lonely birthdays, he was never alone. In the present, tears of grief fall onto the dusty ground. Gaiman finally breaks, screaming that Nagi was never there for him either. A single tear escapes Nagi's eye, a crack in his own hardened facade. He roars that Gaiman promised to protect him, but was the first to leave. The accusation shatters what's left of the older brother's heart. The words finally land, and Gaemon understands his brother's truth. All this time, Nagi had been fighting his battles completely alone. He was always alone, even when Gaemon thought he was helping. The weight of that realization is a heavier blow than any fist. He sees that he's become just like the parents who abandoned them. But then, Nagi lifts him onto his back, carrying his broken brother. Gaemon is stunned, unable to comprehend this sudden act of forgiveness. He can only bury his face in his brother's shoulder and apologize. A raw, desperate apology for years of pain and misunderstanding. Looks like family therapy finally started. He weeps, wondering why Nagi was the first to show him grace. A memory of a promise made at their parents' graves. A vow that was sealed in blood and grief. He swore he would always protect his little brother. A promise the younger brother accepted with all his heart. But in the end, he was the one who needed saving. He remembers the day he left, another promise broken. Nagi admits that even a foolish, hated brother is still his brother. He sighs, calling it just another one of their brotherly squabbles. Gaemon can only agree, his voice muffled by tears. And for the first time in years, they're on the same path again. Nagi explains that first he had to deal with Varuna. Gaemon looks up, completely bewildered by this sudden revelation. Just then, the rest of the squad arrives to a very confusing family reunion. Varuna stands there asking if the brothers have finally calmed down. The entire squad can only stare, trying to make sense of the scene. He explains it was all a setup for a heart-to-heart talk, with Nonoka as an accomplice. Gaemon begins to tremble, realizing he was the star of this little drama. Nonoka can only offer a silent, sheepish apology for her part in the scheme. Gaemon lets out a scream of pure, unadulterated frustration into the sky. He collapses to the ground, utterly defeated by his brother's brand of tough love. The rest of the vigilantes have gathered, drawn by the commotion. They admit they misjudged the knights, realizing they're here to help. But they leave the final decision to their leader, Nagi. With a bruised face and a heavy heart, he makes his choice. The mayor calls out to him, and he responds with a new resolve. He bows his head, offering a formal apology for his past actions. He looks up, offering their full strength to the knights' cause. The entire vigilante corps bows as one, a symbol of their new alliance. The mayor can only watch, stunned by this sudden unity. Varuna places a hand on his shoulder, accepting their offer. The mayor formally accepts their help, his face full of hope. Nagi, bruised but resolute, offers a grim, determined smile. The two leaders shake hands, with Varuna caught awkwardly in the middle. The mayor expresses his desire to cooperate, and Nagi tells him to leave it to them. That night, the two brothers and Varuna stare up at the enemy's fortress. They steel themselves for the decisive battle that awaits them at dawn. The next day, their combined forces stand ready, signaling the start of the assault. Kyariban's familiar returns, bringing the final reconnaissance. Looks like bird mail is still in fashion. He reports to the mayor that all units are in position. With a final, thundering command, the mayor orders them to battle stations. The first volley is prepared, a signal for the battle to begin. A massive projectile is loaded, a crude but effective tool of war. Gaemon begins the countdown, his eyes fixed on the target. Nagi joins in, his voice ringing with newfound purpose. The final number hangs in the air as the signal is given. With a thunderous roar, the order to fire echoes across the valley. The projectile finds its mark, sealing the chasm in a cloud of dust and rock. The mayor confirms the first phase is a success. The nest entrance is blocked. Guess the orcs won't be using the front door. He immediately asks for a status report on the town's waterways. Back in town, the vigilantes are pumping the sewers full of stink bombs. The mayor gives the signal, confirming the second phase is a success. A warning cry echoes through the streets. The orcs are coming. The ground itself begins to shake and crack from the pressure below. A young girl watches in terror as the earth gives way. The orcs burst from the ground, clawing their way into the open. Nagi explains the plan. Lure them out and protect the town at all costs. His men are in awe of the knight's strategy and Varuna's command. But Nagi is fired up, declaring he won't be outdone by anyone. He charges forward, ready to take on the entire horde himself. The mayor gives the final order, unleashing the next wave of their assault. Akina and the tool squad move in, tossing their own special ordnance. He roars, delivering a custom-made surprise for the emerging horde. The ground erupts in a cloud of smoke and debris. A carpet of explosions blankets the battlefield, a very unfriendly welcome mat. Varuna shouts at Nagi, telling him to shake off his fear and prepare himself. The mayor gives the final command, protect the people at all costs. Varuna once again calls upon the kingdom's offensive sword style. He unleashes the seventh form, Raging Falcon. Nagi is left completely speechless, unable to believe he wiped out so many in an instant. Inspired by the display, he rallies his own men to charge into the fray. The brothers fight back to back, a wall of steel against the horde. Their spears cross, a symbol of their reforged bond. Gaiman moves with a ferocity born from years of regret. Their weapons meet, a perfect harmony of destruction. They unleash a combined attack, a whirlwind of death. Looks like they've been practicing this move in their heads for years. Gaiman's spear finds its mark with brutal, satisfying force. Together they fell another beast, a testament to their new alliance. In their eyes, the same fire burns, a shared will to protect. They move as one, a perfectly synchronized engine of destruction. Nagi grins, finally acknowledging his brother's skill on the battlefield. Nagi roars that he refuses to be outdone by his older brother. Even Varuna has to admit, they're a truly formidable combination. But the other vigilantes can't keep up with this level of combat. From the cliffs, Karume provides cover fire for the ground troops. The spear wielder slams into the earth, sending shockwaves through the horde. Varuna surveys the scene. The smaller threats are all but eliminated. But on the cliffs above, the true leaders of the nest finally appear. Looks like the management team has arrived. A wave of immense pressure washes over the entire battlefield. The orc chieftain lets out a roar that shakes the very mountains. But the mayor, the brothers, and Varuna stand firm, their resolve unbroken. The true king of the nest emerges, a monstrous boar of immense power. The vigilantes can only scream in terror. They've just met the final boss. The chieftain and its guards prepare a new assault, lifting massive boulders. Nagi can't believe his eyes, but Varuna knows this is just the beginning. The mayor watches in horror as his carefully laid plan begins to crumble. A desperate order is given to retreat as the sky begins to fall. The battlefield becomes a death trap, with knights diving for cover. Even Varuna is forced to move, narrowly avoiding the crushing impact. The ground shatters under the force of the rocky barrage. From its perch, the chieftain watches the chaos it has unleashed. Nagi screams that they're being overwhelmed and need to fall back. But Varuna plants his feet, refusing to give a single inch. He walks forward into the chaos and Gaiman calls out his name in warning. He unleashes the fifth form of the kingdom's sword style, Crowbeak. A massive boulder is split in two, leaving Nagi utterly speechless. Varuna carves a path through the falling debris, a whirlwind of steel. His eyes are cold as he declares he's going in alone. The brothers scream at him, calling his plan reckless suicide. But our boy's resolve is absolute, his focus unbreakable. Gaiman can only watch in horror as Varuna charges into the storm of rock. He shatters the rock with a single, impossible strike. He becomes a phantom, weaving through the deadly rain. His expression is a mask of pure, unyielding focus. He lands on the cliff facing the chieftain's personal guard. In his eyes, the cold fire of a man with nothing to lose. The chieftain's own eyes widen in disbelief and fury. He runs up the sheer cliff face because gravity is just a suggestion. His gaze is locked on his target, ignoring the chaos below. One of the guards moves to intercept, its fist a stony hammer. But Varuna meets the blow head-on, a clash of titans. The impact shatters the cliffside, a testament to his raw power. The guard is sent flying, a mere pebble against a tidal wave. Varuna grits his teeth, pouring every ounce of will into the blow. He twists in the air, his blade a whirlwind of deadly grace. The chieftain's eye widens, finally seeing the true threat before it. For the first time, the Monster King looks genuinely surprised. His blade becomes a blur, a silver flash against the dark hide. The chieftain can only watch as the final strike connects. Guess it didn't see that coming. The cliff erupts in a blinding flash of light and fury. As the dust settles, a lone figure stands amidst the ruin. The chieftain's eyes burn with rage, its snout flared in defiance. But a single swallow flies past, a harbinger of the coming strike. Varuna meets the guard's charge, his blade a wall of unyielding steel. The beast's eye widens, a flicker of shock in its final moment. Black feathers scatter across the sky, a signature of his deadly art. He unleashes the third form, Flying Swallow. Bloodied and battered, our boy just refuses to take a sick day. The force of his next blow sends a shockwave across the cliffside. His blade becomes a single perfect point of light. Below, his comrades can only watch as the mountain peak erupts in light. The vigilantes are stunned, unable to believe he wiped them out alone. The brothers can only watch, their own conflict suddenly seeming so small. This is Varuna, the headhunter, a living legend of the kingdom's knights. The mayor can only scream, his face a mask of pure terror. Because Varuna didn't just defeat the chieftain, he bored a hole through the entire mountain. His comrades had called it reckless, but he proved them all wrong. The squad rushes to his side, scolding him for his complete disregard for his own safety. Nonoka, in particular, seems less than impressed with his heroics. She pinches his cheek, telling him to reflect on his reckless actions. Our boy can only endure the world's most aggressive medical checkup. She pulls him into a hug, her relief finally breaking through. Through tears, she admits just how worried she truly was. The mayor dismisses the troops, telling them to rest as the cleanup begins. Varuna watches the brothers walk off, his expression unreadable. Nagi reflects on their duty, realizing people were suffering while they fought. Gammon agrees, declaring the knights are the sword of the people. Nagi offers a genuine smile, his old hatred finally gone. Varuna gives Gammon a gentle push, telling him it's time to go. Guess his work as a family therapist is done. Gammon looks back one last time, a silent farewell to his brother, and Nagi watches him leave, a proud, knowing smile on his face. Gammon turns to leave, his duty calling him away once more. Nagi can only watch his big brother go, the word echoing in his mind. Gammon tells him not to do anything reckless while he's gone. Nagi looks down, a quiet acceptance in his eyes. With a final thumbs up, Gammon tells him to take care of himself too. The mission is over, and the knights prepare to depart. Gammon turns to Varuna, a look of genuine gratitude on his face. Our boy just gives a small smile, accepting the thanks. Gammon thanks him for helping them reconcile, but he hasn't forgiven the beatdown. Priorities, I guess. Varuna thinks that for all his strength, Gammon is still just as awkward as ever. The cleanup begins, with Kiaraban scouting the waterways for stragglers. Varuna watches them, his own thoughts a quiet storm. Gammon decides he should probably go help with the cleanup effort. But his familiar returns with an urgent, panicked cry. Down by the water, they find something completely unexpected. Looks like the weirdness dial just got turned up to 11.